you know, I might say let's go into team preview, and I'll get right to these teams. All right, so as I said, Eric Huang's running Tapu Lele, Tapu Koko, Ninetales, that Braviary, Alolan Marowak, and Alolan Persian versus Sam's team of Nihilego, Formosa, Celesteela, Kartana, Circuitry, and Guzzlord.
I'm not even sure which team to start on for this one. Both of them are particularly exciting. I think we have to start with Sam's, of course.
I feel like we really do, because I think he's the first trainer that I've heard of personally to ever attempt to build a team out of all Ultra Beasts. You know, I think a lot of people have been using them as sort of, you know, very decent supports to build around, but no one's said, hey, why don't I just build my Ultra Beast team around Ultra Beasts?
Well, what I love about the Ultra Beast team is the Ultra Beasts kind of come in two varieties. They come in that very fast and offensive style, the Nihilego, the Kartana, and the Pheromosa, but then the bulkier sort of slow it down Pokemon, the Celesteela and the Guzzlord in particular, I think, can add something to this team. But it's not like Eric doesn't have a mix of firepower himself, of course. We're both excited about the Braviary, America's favorite bird Pokemon.
The bravest of all bird Pokemon, I believe.
Well, it may be trying to get some brave birds off and do some good damage to some of these teams, especially things like the Pheromosa, maybe even the Kartana, of course, doing good neutral damage. So that both the players have locked in their teams, and they are ready to get going and kick us off here at the Dallas Regional Championships.
All right, I'm so excited that these trainers are raring to go. I personally am raring to go. I know you're raring to go. Let's finally get this show on the road as we wait to see what these trainers are going to lead. Once again, this is Samuel Harsma versus Eric Huang, and Sam starts this match out with Nihilego and Formosa as his lead against Eric's Braviary, there it is, and the Alolan Marowak.
So a very, very offensive lead, I think, from both trainers here. Of course, we do see on Sam's side of the field a definite speed advantage. Both these Pokemon exceptionally fast, and that Nihilego is a fantastic lead here, of course. Both these Pokemon weak to rock-type moves, Nihilego being the rock poison type, could be slapping something with a power gem right off the bat, and an early knockout would be really good for Sam's team. It relies on picking up momentum and using that beast boost ability, so once he gets rolling, it's really hard to stop him rocking.
Yeah, you know, in terms of that beast boost ability, it almost looks like Sam's built his entire team around it. You know, there's a lot of options I think he has, especially with a lead like this, to just be really offensive straight off the bat, and we'll have to see if that's what he decided to do here. Braviary, though, taking things slow at first, but Sam with a Z move, it looks like that's going to be an all-out pummeling from that Formosa.
It's going to be a big one. The Z move, very important in this current format, and using it on turn one is such a gamble, of course. If you go into a Protect like we saw from the Braviary, then you're kind of in trouble. We are going to see it target down that Braviary. The Protect isn't going to save it entirely, of course. It's still going to take damage through that Protect, but it's almost slightly wasted from Sam, only getting about 40% damage down onto the Braviary. So we have to see what Nihilego follows up with.
Nihilego with that Power Gem into the Alolan Marowak. It deals a ton of damage and gets the knockout in one hit, and there's that Beast Boost ability activating, boosting Nihilego's special attack. So its next Power Gem is going to be even more powerful, especially since we just saw that Life Orb revealed on Sam's side of the field.
Very good turn for Sam there. I love that he got the Beast Boost on the Nihilego, of course, knowing that he can put pressure on the Braviary next turn with the Power Gem, of course, powered up by that Beast Boost, is probably going to be taking a very easy knockout with the damage from the all-out pummeling. He is going to be missing that maybe later in the game, although it looks like there's not so much on Eric's team that he does want to catch with it. So good to get some damage down with it, and it'll be up to Eric to pull out his Z move if he has one, and see if he can get himself back in the game. Of course, they're very important, and they can definitely swing the game for a player who uses them wisely.
Yeah, Tapu Lele taking the field on Eric's side in place of that Marowak. A great play, I think, by Eric. He's looking to possibly deal a lot of damage with that Psychic, but instead we actually see Tapu Lele protect this turn. Ice Beam from the Formosa is going to connect with the Braviary, but will it be enough to knock it out? It is, and Formosa too is now going to benefit from that Beast Boost ability, getting a boost in its highest stat, which in this case is also the special attack. Sludge Bomb from that Nihilego into the protecting Tapu Lele, and just like that, Sam has boosted both of his first Ultra Beasts, I guess I should say, and has forced Eric down to his last two Pokemon, that Tapu Koko, which we just saw take the field, setting up that Electric Surge, and the Tapu Lele.
It's going to be a really tough position here from Eric. Of course, we've got Ultra Beast versus Tapu Pokemon. Going to be interesting. Eric maybe has a bit of a comeback option here. The Tapu Koku is going to be exceptionally fast, maybe able to pick up a quick knockout, but he's got a lot to do to slow down these two, and we see the offensive power of the Ultra Beast just working. He leads very offensively, and he just has this game in his hand due to the momentum he's picked up. Nothing is particularly safe on the field right now, as we see Pheromosa just go and try and do some damage.
Wow, Ice Beam into the Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko hanging on with 14 HP. We're going to see a Dazzling Gleam knock out the Pheromosa from the Tapu Koko on Eric's side of the field, and Tapu Koko gets knocked out due to the Life Orb recoil on it, unfortunately, leaving this down to Tapu Lele versus Nihilego, who moves first with that Sludge Bomb, and it knocks Tapu Lele right out. That was amazingly played by Sam, but it almost feels like Eric knows all of his tricks moving forward now going into game 2.
Well, he's definitely given up the ghost, and there's no shock element, I think, when we go to pretty much what we have in game 2, which is, oh my lord, there's 6 Ultra Beasts on this team, how do I answer them? So that shock element is gone, and that's going to be something that Eric has to look to answer as we get through this game. I think the power that we saw from Sam was generated by the speed of the Pokemon he bought. Of course, Pheromosa and Nihilego, very, very fast Pokemon, going to be able to put down that damage very early. So I think if Eric rather would like to get back in this game, he needs to bring something to control the speed. He definitely has some options on his team, but getting those options out and getting the speed control set up safely is going to be a real ask for Eric, I think, in game 2.
Yeah, you know, if the Persian on his team knows Fake Out or something similar, that might be a great opportunity for a Pokemon such as maybe Braviary to set up Tailwind. We might see something like a Trick Room or something maybe. His team's very interesting with that Alolan Marowak. It almost feels like he maybe shouldn't have brought it that first game because it might be more of a Trick Room counter per se. But these trainers are jumping right into it, so clearly they know where they're going for this next game.
Yeah, I think both players know the game was pretty simple and straightforward, so both players know what they want to do. There's the shock factor going for Eric, but definitely looking a little under pressure. That game really went very quickly against him in Sam's favor, and I think Sam knows that. So maybe he'll switch up the lead, or maybe he won't, as I am immediately proven wrong.
Yeah, so we're going to see again the Pheromosa and Nihilego from Sam, Braviary and Persian on Eric's side of the field. So again, we see the Braviary, but this time we are seeing the Persian take to the field, which I think is a great indication that it is carrying something like Fake Out, or who knows, maybe there's something else it can do to help him out here.
No, the presence of Fake Out on Persian is definitely going to help him. If he can stop one of these two attacking, then perhaps his Braviary can stay on the field for a little bit longer. Of course, it's going to be scared of Power Gem. We saw Pheromosa with Ice Beam. But Braviary has the option to bring speed control in the form of Tailwind. Sam, though, not going offensive right off the bat.
We see Sam switch out that Pheromosa into Circuitry, which is an electric-type Pokemon, so still carrying an advantage here on the field. Fake Out into the Nihilego, so Nihilego will not attack this turn, and Braviary using that speed control, getting a Tailwind up on the field. So for the next 2 turns, Eric's Pokemon may be faster than those Ultra Beasts, so we'll just have to see.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help Eric out. That is something he really needed. Of course, he didn't get it in game 1, but now he knows what Sam's team does, so he can adapt and bring Tailwind this game. I'm not so sure if the slower Pokemon in his team, like Alolan Marowak, is still going to be faster and moving before Sam's team, but things like Braviary, things like the Persian, definitely going to be going first in the turn and maybe able to put down a lot of pressure that way and maybe get a knockout and slow Sam down a little bit.
We see Braviary switch out and a Marowak take the field, so this might be a good indication that this Marowak is going to operate well under this Tailwind. Snarl from that Alolan Persian connecting with Circuitry and Nihilego, who are both specially attack sort of oriented Pokemon, so that's definitely going to hurt Sam's potential damage output. Power Gem into the Alolan Marowak though, and even with the Snarl, it is still enough to knock it out. So we see that Beast Boost activate once again and cancel out the special attack drop from Snarl. So it's almost like that attack didn't happen except for the damage output. And Circuitry too, dealing its own sort of mitigation for that Snarl using Tail Glow, which will raise its special attack by 2 stages.
Very smart play from Sam there, and it definitely punished that switch from Eric. He knew that Alolan Marowak was a potential on Eric's team, so instead of just throwing out a Thunderbolt or an electric type attack in general, he just plays it safe, thinks he may have the time to set up a Tail Glow, which he does, so that's null and void on both Pokemon on the side of the field, and Nihilego just punishing the switch. So a brave switch from Eric that just didn't quite pay off because of very clever prediction on where to put the Power Gem from Sam.
We see Tapu Koko take the field on Eric's side, setting up that electric terrain, which almost looks like it might benefit Circuitry a little bit more than that Tapu Koko. You know, we know that Tapu Koko is one of the fastest Pokemon in the metagame right now, so who it targets we'll have to see. Circuitry going for Protect, Dazzling Gleam from that Circuitry, going to connect with the Nihilego. Will it do enough to knock it out? It hardly does any damage at all. I believe Tapu Koko took more Life Orb recoil there than anything else, and we see another Snarl from that Persian. Again, Circuitry protecting Nihilego, taking it though head on and losing that special attack drop. But firing back a Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Koko, and it still is able to get the knockout despite the fact that its special attack was lowered.
No, very interesting way the team works. Of course, Eric looking to use this Snarl to lower special attacks and help keep his Pokemon around a little more, but with the threat of Beast Boost, with the tail goes, that Snarl's just not doing its job, so it's almost a wasted turn from Eric here. Definitely under the thumb, and Sam just really showing off the pressure that you can bring when you bring these Ultra Beasts. So it'll be interesting to see throughout the day how people build these Ultra Beasts into their team, because I don't think we're going to see all 6 on a team again.
I really don't think we're going to see that. You know, and it's a great call by Sam. I think Ultra Beasts are Pokemon that are just naturally very strong, and to utilize all 6 of them sort of gives him an advantage in the sense that, you know, his Pokemon are going to be the most offensive. They're going to be the most defensive. They're going to be the fastest, barring like Tapu Koko, for example. So his team is definitely built to do well today, but it's going to come down to, you know, how does he handle situations like Trick Room? How does he handle situations where, I don't know, maybe there'll be a Aurora Veil on the field that'll help mitigate some of his attacking power. But for now, it almost looks like he has this in his hands. We do see another Snarl from that Persian, this time connecting with the Circuitry, lowering its special attack one stage, activating its held item, which appears to be a healing berry of some sort. It is the Citrus Berry, of course, and Sky Drop from the Braviary, picking that Circuitry up, bringing it into the sky, and stopping it from attacking this turn.
I love seeing the Sky Drop on Braviary, and definitely it's a move I'm interested in this format, because people rely on everything in their team right now. There's not parts that you can just go missing. So Sky Drop taking Circuitry out could be very, very helpful, especially with the way that Tailwind ends and then comes back. So definitely smart play from Eric. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get him back into this game, but it's definitely something to look out for during the day, and I think this is just an indication of how varied and exciting the format is, where we see Sam just switching around to keep himself safe.
We see Pheromosa switch in to take the Snarl from the Alolan Persian, dropping its special attack one stage. Braviary returning Circuitry to the ground with a Sky Drop. However, it doesn't deal enough damage for a knockout, and I believe Circuitry will still attack this turn with a very powerful Thunderbolt into that Braviary, and it knocks it out. Persian has something else hidden up its sleeve. This might be a 2-0 win for Sam.
It looks like it's going to be a very easy win. Both teams built very interestingly, but Sam just seems exceptionally confident with this team. Definitely knows all of the plays that it can make, and I definitely think it's a good person to have in your resistance as you look for the tournament. Of course, the way this works is you want to lose to good players. So Sam looks like somebody you want as a loss on your record. I think that's going to be a really big asset to Eric as he moves through the day.
Definitely. I mean, Sam, he did qualify for Worlds last year. He's been competing for a long time. But first, let's talk about the Z move. Looks like Formosa wants to show off its all-out pummeling one last time before the end of this match on stream. Take it away, Daz.
Well, we see all-out pummeling is going to do so much damage throughout the day for Sam. I love the animation, but it just catches anything. Unless you resist it, even with the Protect, you still can't take it. And of course, all-out pummeling into the Dark type that the Persian picked up in Alola is going to take a very easy knockout. So Sam just styling as we move into the back end of this game, but it's definitely something to note. I think the Z move is something we're going to talk about a lot today, and how it impacts the team so much.
All right, and these trainers are going into team preview. So once again, for those of you just turning in, we have Tiffany Stanley versus Mitchell Davies. Tiffany is running Tapu Fini, Muck, Alolan Marowak, Executor, Mudsdale, and Formosa versus Mitchell's team of Tapu Lele, Formosa, Celesteela, Garchomp, Politoed, and Vikavolt. And once again, the Muck, the Marowak, and the Executor on Tiffany's team are all their Alolan forms.
Very exciting to see. And there's definitely some interesting matchups. I do want to see what Vikavolt can do. Of course, there's nothing particularly weak. It is an electric bug type, so electric attacks are going to be a bit dangerous to throw around, with Marowak potentially in the pocket for Tiffany, being able to switch that in and use that lightning rod. But he's not really hitting anything outside the Tapu Fini with those electric attacks, so I think that will be the key to Mitchell's victory if he wants to really capitalize, is can he work around the Tapu Fini? We saw what it did in San Jose for Enosh, and it really is tough to get rid of if you're not overly prepared for it. So I think Tiffany is going to be looking to do a lot with Tapu Fini, while Mitchell looks to do a lot with Vikavolt here.
So it looks like these trainers are ready to get started. We'll have to see if Tiff did decide to bring that Tapu Fini and to see if Mitchell decided to bring that Vikavolt. Either way, I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting match as Tiffany sends out her Tapu Fini and her Alolan Muck as a lead versus Mitchell's Vikavolt and Garchomp. I believe we just saw all the Pokemon we talked about before this match, so good work, team.
Between the pair of us, we cover them all. I think the matchup really favors Mitchell here on paper. Just looking at the Pokemon on the field, obviously Vikavolt puts good pressure on the Tapu Fini, and Garchomp puts good pressure on the Alolan Muck. Vikavolt having that levitate ability means Garchomp's a little bit freer to Earthquake, so that's very nice. But it's not quite that simple, of course. Two Pokemon in the back for Tiffany. It's an interesting matchup. It looks like you want to bring in Alolan Marowak to get Lightning Rod, but you don't want to switch it in on an Earthquake as well.
So we see Muck protect this turn. Garchomp going straight for that Earthquake, so Vikavolt's going to dodge it thanks to its Levitate ability. It does connect with the Tapu Fini, but it doesn't really deal that much damage. Tapu Fini is still sitting pretty there with a Moonblast back into the Garchomp. This will certainly be a knockout unless that Garchomp is surprisingly bulky. So interestingly enough, we did see the Vikavolt target the Alolan Muck and the Garchomp with a discharge, not going to deal any damage to them, but Tapu Fini is knocked out.
Very, very interesting play. The Disquake combination that we haven't seen rise to popularity for probably 6 years now. We finally see somebody put it together as a really good pairing, the Vikavolt Garchomp, and it takes the knockout on Tapu Fini. Discharge also getting around the threat of Lightning Rod, because it doesn't matter if you switch in Lightning Rod. Discharge will still hit everything on the field. So a very good turn for Mitchell. I think he led that game absolutely perfectly, and Tiffany didn't really have much of an answer to it. So she's going to be fighting back with a Pokemon disadvantage, but bringing Pheromosa here could potentially be a very good answer to that.
Yeah, we see Garchomp use a Earthquake again, moving first on the field. It's going to deal damage to all the Pokemon this time around, but whether or not it's enough to knock out that Muck is to be seen. Muck hanging on with just a little bit of health there, and it activates Muck's held item, which looks like it'll be restoring some health, but whether or not, yes, it's the Ayapapa berry. So rather than a citrus berry, it restores a little more health, which is always much appreciated. Ice Beam from that Formosa to KO that Garchomp, deal that last bit of damage, and activate Formosa's Beast Boost, which boosts its special attack. And finally, we see another discharge from that Vikavolt, unfortunately knocking out the Formosa and leaving Muck in not really the greatest position, but it does connect with a Stone Edge, which misses the knockout.
Well, there was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on in that turn.
We'll start with obviously the fact that Garchomp went first. That's information Tiffany needs to take, and Mitchell's showing a card there, of course. Garchomp not usually able to outspeed Pheromosa, so likely information for her, it's holding the Choice Scarf, which kind of makes sense in the fact that he just wants to get this very fast Disquake off. Of course, Pheromosa picking up the knockout in return, but still getting knocked out by the discharge, so the Beast Boost not a threat going forward. We do see Muck is going to be very difficult to take down, of course, holding that Ayapapa berry. And we do see as well the Stone Edge on Muck, not something we commonly see. That is definitely going to be causing a problem for that Vikavolt staying around.
Yes, we do see Marowak switch in on Tiffany's side of the field. Mitchell sending in his Politoed, so unfortunately for Marowak, its fire-type attacks will not be that helpful here, and it has to watch out that Politoed doesn't target it with a water-type move such as Scald. But, you know, rather than reveal any more information moving forward, Tiffany forfeits, which I think is a great use of that forfeit feature. You know, it's game one. It wasn't really going that well in her favor when you think about things. She went to a very early disadvantage thanks to that most likely Choice Scarfed Garchomp Earthquake and Discharge combo. So now we're going to see her decide to forfeit and, you know, keep that information to herself and maybe start working on a strategy moving forwards.
Yeah, Mitchell taking a very comprehensive win there. Of course, I think he just led perfectly. Showed off Disquake, which I'm quite excited about, a bit of a throwback for me. And I like the amount of pressure it put down on Tiffany's team. Her whole team kind of didn't have an answer to it. You know, I said at the beginning of the game she relied on Tapu Fini, and that of course just got knocked out in turn one. So losing that was a bit of a problem for her. and I think she's going to have to adapt to this team. Mitchell showing some cards, though. It is going to be good information for her, obviously the item on the Garchomp, and just the general strategy of his team, something she can pick up on, and I think she's going to be able to play around this and hopefully take us to a game 3 here.
Yeah, I think if I were Mitchell, I would definitely be thinking about bringing the same lead, though. It may seem sort of obvious, and it may, Tiffany may have the opportunity to sort of adjust, maybe send in that Formosa first, but, you know, it did so much work for him early on, and it's really on her to sort of adjust and sort of show what she can do to stop that. And given how quickly Mitchell, you know, selected his Pokemon going into this game, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Garchomp and Vikavolt lead once again.
No, it was very, very effective. And looking just down on the paper, I don't know how many answers Tiffany has to it. Of course, with the Garchomp being that fast, that brings a lot more pressure to it. We also saw Garchomp not get knocked out by the Pheromosa Ice Beam, so one of his best sort of, you know,
one of his
assets.
best counters, actually, to things that counter Garchomp is just being able to survive that Ice Beam. We do see the same lead here. Garchomp and Vikavolt out on Mitchell's side of the field. On Tiffany's side of the field, it looks like we see the Alolan Muck again, but this time it's actually the Alolan Executor that's acting as its partner, and not... yeah, and not the Tapu Fini like we saw last game.
No, Tapu Fini, obviously something she didn't think did enough for her, so she switches up and brings a Alolan Executor, so that's going to be a slightly different setup for her, and I think this might be a better answer. Of course, Vikavolt does still keep it in check with a Bug Buzz, but not as bad as it was when it was Grass and Psychic, so Dragon helping out a little bit there.
Once again, we see Muck protecting the first turn, and once again, we see that Earthquake from the Garchomp. So this Garchomp is not afraid of anything right now. It looks like Mitchell is going to stick with the same strategy, that so-called Discquake, starting off with an Earthquake into the Executor, and Vikavolt, though, switching it up with a Bug Buzz, targeting that Executor. Will it be able to survive? Unfortunately, it is knocked out, and we may never know what that Executor was meant to do.
No, we're not going to be quite sure. Poor Muck, in the past couple of rounds, both games, his partner's just been knocked out on turn 1. So Muck trying to pull its weight on its own, definitely going to be up against it. We did see it miss the knockout on the Vikavolt there. Going to be a little bit hard. That's something it really wants to be able to get, and not getting that just shows that Mitchell's team's been trained quite defensively as well. So I think he's hit this really good balance between offense with the combination of Earthquake and Discharge, and defense in the way he's trained his Pokemon to eat up these hits.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I really love how he's used the extra, you know, stat and potential that his Garchomp has. Instead of putting it into speed because of that Choice Scarp, he may have put it into, you know, maybe the HP, maybe the special defense, and giving it this advantage that it needs to just stick around on the field for a couple of hits and survive anything that can take it down. It really allows him and gives him the freedom to stick with the same strategy and force his opponents to figure out, well, I know it's really fast, I know it's going to deal a lot of damage, how do I stop it? And Tiffany's answer might be swaggering her own Muck. Now, thanks to the fact that Muck does make contact with the ground and that Misty Terrain is activated, Muck will not be confused. Instead, it'll take a +2 attack boost, and it survives the discharge from the Vikavolt. So if this Stone Edge connects, assuming we do see the Stone Edge again, it's going to be massively powerful. Instead, we see the knockoff onto Garchomp, but it holds on with just a sliver of health, dealing some damage back with that Rough Skin and confirming that it is holding, or it was holding, I should say, the Choice Scarf.
Very, very good play there from Tiffany, showing one of the options her team has. The side swagger, using that Misty Terrain, definitely to her advantage. Unfortunately, Muck, being one of the slower Pokemon on the field, just wasn't able to do enough, and missing the KO with that knockoff, just going to make those completely null and void.
Definitely. So here we are in team preview. Logan Castro versus Tommy Cooling. Once again, for any of you who are just tuning in, we have on Logan's side of the field Miss Magia's Garchomp, Gastrodon, Arcanine, Tapu Koko, and Kartana versus Tommy Cooling's team of Araquanid, Gigalith, Salamence, Porygon 2, Kartana, and Tapu Koko. And you know, while I'm looking looking over these team sheets, one of the things that really jumps out at me from Tommy's side of the field is the fact that it looks like he has a Trick Room sort of mode on his team with the combination of that Gigalith and that Araquanid.
Well, it's the Gigalith, the Araquanid, and of course the Porygon 2, which is emerging as one of those premium setters of Trick Room. Carrying that Eviolite, it's almost impossible to knock it out with just one Pokemon. You need 2 Pokemon to do it, and with a partner that's putting some pressure down as well, it makes it a really fantastic setter of Trick Room. Saying that though, Logan definitely has some interesting options here, and what I'm excited to see on Logan's side of the field is where he decides to put those Z moves. So that's going to be a tough decision for him.
Yes, it's definitely going to be a tough decision. Do you think that Miss Magius is going to come out and play at all?
I don't know how it fares against Tommy's team. I think Miss Magius here, having a brief chat with Logan earlier, I think it's definitely something to look at for Tapu Lele. Obviously, if it was there to shut down Trick Room, then Porygon 2 isn't going to be affected by a big Ghost type move being normal type, so I don't know if it's as useful, but maybe he'll just bring it out. Maybe there's other uses of it that we've not seen yet.
And we see Salamence and Porygon 2 take the field on Tommy's side of the field. For Logan, he's going to send out Tapu Koko and Garchomp, so definitely different styles of leads here from these trainers.
Well, it looks like Tommy, if he wants it, is going to be fairly free to set up a Trick Room. I mean, there is a lot of damage potential. Not the same Discharge and Earthquake combination available with Tapu Koko, of course, not levitating off the ground, so going to be a little bit harder, but there is definitely the pressure of huge damage on Logan's side of the field. We do know Garchomp a little bit quicker than Salamence, so could maybe use a Dragon-type move to knock that out, although Dragon-type move's not as popular this year. The only Tapu Pokemon, the only Fairy type that Tommy has is the Tapu Koko, so if he needs that, he's going to have to bring it in. There's definitely a lot of pressure from Logan's side of the field, but Tommy has the defensive options here to really take that and move on and set something up for himself, I think.
Yeah, and I think going into Game 1, having those defensive options puts you at a little bit of an advantage. But interestingly enough, we see Logan making a very defensive play right off the bat, sending in his Arcanine in place of that Garchomp, removing the Intimidate on the Garchomp that Salamence set up, and adding his own Intimidate, and Tapu Koko using Skydrop to stop Porygon 2 from moving this turn, possibly stopping the Trick Room. We see a Dragon Pulse from that Salamence connect with the Arcanine, and while it deals a nice chunk of damage there, that Arcanine will heal right back up thanks to its Citrus Berry.
That switch, very, very smart by Logan. Obviously a little bit scared of what Salamence could do. We have seen Salamence go back to its old ways, and the items that are very popular on it are those choice items. So maybe he was worried about a choice scarf and it outspeeding and knocking out his Garchomp. That's probably the reason for that switch, but I love the Tapu Koko skydropping, just getting rid of the threat of that Porygon for a turn.
Yeah, returning Porygon 2 to Earth, we see that Tapu Koko finish off its Skydrop. We see a second Dragon Pulse into the Arcanine for the knockout, and Porygon 2 will finally be able to move, and it uses this opportunity to get that Trick Room up.
It looks uncommon to set up a Trick Room next to a Salamence, but with Tapu Koko on the field, which is exceptionally fast, even faster than the Salamence, this is going to be a really good time for it. If Salamence has an answer to Tapu Koko and it's pretty wide move pool, then it may just be able to capitalize off that. And Logan in a very tricky situation now, bringing out another fast Pokemon with Trick Room not stopped, so probably something Logan needed to focus on a little bit. Skydrop only buying him a turn, not having anything to do the next turn, puts Tommy not only in the Pokemon advantage, but just a complete board control advantage.
Yeah, it looks like when Logan was thinking about Team Preview, he was not accounting for the fact that Trick Room could be an option that Tommy brings, and I think Tommy has really capitalized on that. We see the Ice Beam into the Tapu Koko, a third Dragon Pulse into the Kartana this time. It gets the knockout, but actually wait, that's a Focus Sash, so it is not knocked out, but a very interesting choice from Tommy. I'm not quite sure why he picked to continue to Dragon Pulse there. We see a Sacred Sword into the Porygon 2, followed up with a Nature's Madness to lower that Porygon 2's health even further into the yellow.
A couple of things to pick up on that turn, although they didn't exchange any knockouts. Tommy put down a lot of damage on the Kartana, and I think he may have given away a little bit of information about that Salamence. Of course, not changing its move for 3 turns now means it's likely one of those choice items, and with the fact he's set up Trick Room next to it, it could be the choice specs coming back that we haven't seen in a long time. Logan's showing off a little more about his Tapu Koko as well, good information. We've seen Skydrop, we've now seen Nature's Madness, so it looks like the Tapu Koko is taking a little more of a supportive role than the aggressive role it usually does, and I wonder if maybe Logan needs to bring something a little more aggressive, especially with the way Tommy's played this game.
We see Tommy switch out his Porygon 2, sending in his Kartana in its place. Salaman's Dragon Pulsing once again into a protecting Kartana, and this time that Tapu Koko will go for a Dazzling Gleam. However, it's not quite strong enough to get that knockout on Salamence.
No, we haven't seen many people pick up Tapu Koko for its Dazzling Gleam pressure. It's unfortunate that it has a slightly lower special attack than its physical attack, so Dazzling Gleam, although boosted by its same type attack bonus, not quite doing enough, getting nowhere near the knockout on Salamence. So Logan just doesn't seem to have enough to answer him, and I think Tommy played very carefully in the early turns, and now it's just paying dividends for him as we move into the back end of this game. Although we can see Trick Room about to end, Logan's really got to weather the storm for another 2 turns before he can then start to push on, and with Kartana hanging on with its Focus Sash, it's going to be tough.
Kartana tries to hold on with a second Protect. Unfortunately, it fails. Dragon Pulse from that Salamence for the knockout into Kartana. So provided Tommy's Kartana here decides to use some sort of Steel-type move, we actually see the Leaf Blade instead, but that's still enough damage to knock out that Tapu Koko, possibly thanks to a critical hit. And now it is just that Garchomp versus the Salamence and the now Beast-boosted Kartana on Tommy's side of the field.
A very good position for Tommy to round out this game, of course. I believe it's 3 versus 1, or 4 versus 1. He switched, did he not?
Yes, he did.
So he's in a fantastic position, and I think Logan, the pressure now on him, maybe you get a little more information from this turn. I think he may or may not have figured out what's on that Salamence by now. Definitely knowing interesting moves from Tommy's side of the field is going to help him as he just forfeits this game, knowing he goes into game 2. Got to be a little more scared of that Trick Room for sure.
Oh, definitely. Tommy's whole strategy this game hinged on getting that Trick Room and getting it up immediately. I mean, granted, the Skydrop did buy Logan 1 turn, but 1 turn was not enough.
Well, I think when you Skydrop, it's usually done with some speed switching, so it probably didn't work out for Logan. You want to pick it up for the first turn, and then you need something on the second turn to be able to deal with it. So yes, he switched in the Arcanine to take the Dragon Pulse, but that wasn't going to be able to put enough pressure on the Porygon. It was nice to give him a turn to switch without Trick Room going up, but then he needed something to follow it up, and I think that's what he was lacking a little bit when he was trying to shut down that Trick Room. So whatever he does to shut it down, it's got to be a little bit more this game.
Yeah, another possibility, maybe we'll see that Gastrodon come out onto the field. Gastrodon is a Pokemon that's notorious for sort of stalling out games, you know, letting turns pass. So whether or not that Gastrodon makes an appearance this game may sort of dictate what's going to happen to Logan this round. He really needs to think through his strategy closely, as, you know, losing this early on could possibly tilt his momentum a little bit moving forward.
No, I think he's going to be struggling because he doesn't have any Pokemon that can capitalize off Trick Room. The way we see a lot of players build at the moment is what they actually do is they bring a Pokemon that thrives in the Trick Room. Logan doesn't have that. They're all very offensive. Admittedly, Gastrodon keeps a Raquinid away, which is something that's nice, but apart from that, I feel it just doesn't bring enough to give him an answer to Trick Room. So Logan's going to have to be a little more careful, and I'm going to wonder what his lead does to answer Tommy's, which is going to be identical.
Yeah, Tommy again leading with that Salamence and Porygon 2 combo against the Mismagius and the Tapu Koko this time. Mismagius is a Ghost-type Pokemon, which are not notorious for stopping Trick Room, so maybe we'll see it have something else that'll allow it to swing things in Logan's favor.
No, Mismagius has a very, very sneaky move pool, though. It does have access to Taunt, and that could be really essential if Logan's got that, because we know Porygon 2 is forced to hold the Eviolite, a decision that is made for you when teams are built. So if it has that, it can get taunted very, very easily, and that would be one way to shut it down. Of course, he still needs an answer to the Salamence, and I think Tapu Koko is a pretty decent answer. It will be probably a 2-hit knockout with those Dazzling Gleams, as we saw in the previous game. So I think Logan switched up his leads really well here, and I definitely think he has more of an answer, as we just see him start with the Tapu Koko Dazzling Gleam.
Yes, we see that Dazzling Gleam connect with both the Porygon 2 and the Salamence. We do see a taunt from that Mismagius target the Porygon 2, and Porygon falls for it. Salamence responding with a immensely powerful Draco Meteor. It's going to connect with that Mismagius, but it is exactly enough for that knockout. Salamence taking the special attack drop in return, and Porygon 2 cannot use Trick Room anymore thanks to the taunt.
Very interesting. Both players got a little bit of what they want. Of course, Tommy did get rid of that Mismagius. It wasn't holding a Focus Sash. It could be somewhere else on the team. Definitely with this team, it's likely to be on the Kartana. That's where it usually ends up. So it's curious what Mismagius was holding. And if we go to Game 3, that's something Tommy might need to figure out. But of course, stopping the Trick Room was really, really important for Logan, and he did it perfectly this turn. Now Salamence is in a really dicey position. Logan's got the chance to pretty much predict the switch and try and capitalize off it.
We do see Tommy switch out his Porygon 2, and in its place that Kartana once again takes the field. Tapu Koko going for a Nature's Madness onto the Kartana. It'll bring its health exactly down to 50%. A Sacred Sword from that Kartana following up to the Kartana on Tommy's side of the field, getting a knockout. So Salamence still possibly could Draco Meteor here if it is carrying one of those choice items. We do see it go for a second Draco Meteor, but unfortunately it misses the Kartana, and Tommy is now forced to send out either that Porygon 2 or his last Pokemon, which is the Araquanid, as it turns out.
No, that's a very, very good turn for Logan. Gets that last Pokemon out, and it looked like Salamence was going to have to lead the field. Of course, being locked into Draco Meteor with the -2 special attack stat, that could have been the thing leaving. But a very good prediction from Logan, knowing the Porygon also can't do much while it's taunted, switching that out for the Kartana, and Nature's Madness and Sacred Sword is going to be doing a lot of damage. Even if that catches the Porygon, that's going to be taking a knockout, so very, very smart play from Logan, showing the combination that his team can do. We saw it last year with Super Fang. Very, very nice. We are going to see, though, aggression in a different way from Logan.
We see Thunderbolt into the Porygon 2, Leaf Blade into the protecting Araquanid. So a great defensive switch there by Tommy. The Porygon 2 has taken the field once again. We might see Tommy attempt to get that Trick Room up again now that Logan can no longer taunt, but he does still have the option to Sky Drop on his Tapu Koko if he wants to buy more turns for his Kartana to deal damage on the field.
There's definitely a lot of options available to Logan now, and I think the adaptation he made to his team and just the order and Pokemon he selected is really paying off. Tommy forced to make a lot of switches, and it looks like Logan's been able to capitalize them pretty well every single turn.
We see Salamence switch in for the Kartana on Tommy's side of the field, intimidating the Kartana on Logan's side of the field, as well as the Tapu Koko. We see Tapu Koko Thunderbolt into the Porygon 2. Kartana now Sacred Sword into the Porygon 2. It is enough for the knockout. So Tommy is now without his Trick Room setter, and Kartana gets another attack Beast Boost. So the Intimidate did cancel out the first Beast Boost, but now Kartana is again sitting with that nice boost. We know that Araquanid is going to be the slowest thing on the field, and I really don't think it appreciates seeing a Tapu Koko and a Kartana on the other side.
Not at all. This game has been a complete turnaround from game one from Logan. He knew that the problem was the Porygon. He led to deal with the Porygon, and he's just been able to keep up that momentum as we go through the game. So I love the adaptation. He took information particularly about the Salamence from game one, so that very good adaptation from Logan. Tommy just caught a little bit off guard. He switched his style, became very defensive because he didn't get the Trick Room up, trying to switch around, get his board position to what he wanted. But Logan punishing it every single turn with combinations of Nature's Madness and Sacred Sword. Thunderbolt and Sacred Sword, just consistent damage into one side of the field, really working for Logan there. So if he can do that again in game two, I think he's going to be getting off to a great start, or game three. And then I do know that Tommy's just going to have to be a little more cautious with those switches.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we did see the Araquanid, but we actually saw Tommy forfeit before it could do anything other than protect. So whether or not that Araquanid is going to be sort of a key part of his strategy moving into this game is to be seen. He definitely has to rethink his strategy. Maybe he'll try and go for a similar lead again if he thinks that Logan's going to think that he wouldn't possibly lead the same thing 3 times in a row, but you never know. And this is where those mind games sort of come into play, because these trainers have faced each other before. They are very familiar with each other's play styles, and it all comes down to just what kind of reads they're going to make starting with this team preview.
I think it's a stick or twist situation for both players. Of course, Logan very likely wants to bring that Mismagius again. We did see what it did to Tommy's lead, but Tommy, knowing that, could take Porygon in the back, a number of players bring it in for a later Trick Room, and just bring an answer to Mismagius. We saw it doesn't stick around long if it does get attacked, so it's going to be careful. We'll have to see if Mismagius does things other than taunt. I'm sure it has another use, and if it can do that, then it's going to be able to take knockouts, force the Porygon out again, and if he can shut the Porygon down with the Mismagius or something that he's kept hidden till game 3, I think he's going to be in great shape. Tommy's team really relying on that one Pokemon.
All right, game 3 here, Mismagius and Tapu Koko as a lead on Logan's side of the field, so same as game 2. And Tommy finally switching it up, going for a Porygon 2 and Gigalith lead. So we will see the electric terrain get set up on the field once again, but a first for this weekend's stream, we're going to see that Sandstorm ability come out from the Gigalith.
Yeah, Sandstream, what it got in the new generation, definitely able to help do a little bit of chip damage, deal with those focus sashes in some cases, But Tommy aware of what Miss Magius can do this game. We saw in game 2, obviously, the taunt just shut it down immediately. So Tommy can play around that a little bit, maybe switch, maybe use something a little bit more offensive. And again, the pressure just sort of sits with Logan to capitalize on that. So I'm going to be interested to see, it's all about the predictions. And whichever player makes the best predictions with their switching and the targeting of their attacks, I think is going to be in a really good place.
Skydrop from that Tapu Koko into the Porygon 2, and Will-O-Wisp from that Miss Magius going to connect with the Gigalith and significantly lower its attacking possibility for this turn. We see a Rock Slide, but unfortunately it misses the Miss Magius and the Tapu Koko because the Tapu Koko flew up in the air with that Porygon.
Yeah, Tapu Koko getting out of harm's way, but it's not even going to be taking that much damage. Gigalith burned. This generation not used as much for the residual damage, but a Pokemon like Gigalith isn't really going to appreciate having its attack stat cut. So Tommy maybe not able to get as much out of the Gigalith, and I think just a very smart turn there from Logan. Now he has the time to let Porygon hit the ground, perhaps taunt it, because he's not as afraid of the Gigalith. And I just think very smart. It was a safe play, but very, very smart from Logan. I think Tommy slightly on the back foot. He's going to have to see what he can do in this round.
Skydrop returning Porygon 2 to the ground, getting freed from that. We see the Miss Magios follow up immediately with a taunt, so preventing that Porygon 2 from setting up Trick Room. But Porygon 2 this time going for an Ice Beam into the Tapu Koko. It hardly deals any damage. Rock Slide, Miss Magios dodges it once again. It will connect with that Tapu Koko, but thanks to the burn, it just doesn't deal enough damage.
No, those avoids have really helped Logan out. We know Miss Magius doesn't stay on the field for too long, but being able to avoid Rock Slide means it stayed there even longer, of course. Tommy not trying to Trick Room, just getting some good damage down with the Ice Beam. Not as much as he would have liked, I'm sure, but really forcing the Porygon to not be able to do everything it wants to do. So I think Logan's been playing not as aggressive, but still in a pretty good position. So I like the way he's played. A little bit of luck helping him, but sometimes that's just what you need to get through these kind of games.
Definitely. You know, it's a beautiful lead. Logan has been able to figure out a way to shut down Porygon 2 and really any Trick Room setter in a way that's just long enough for him to either figure out a way to sort of maneuver around the Trick Room, which I believe is what we saw him try to do in Game 1 to a certain level of success. Or alternatively, just shut down whatever Porygon 2's partner is, like that Gigalith. So even if Porygon 2 were to get the Trick Room up at this point, that Gigalith will just be unable to deal damage, and Rock Slide accuracy also not helping out much here either. We see the Kartana switch in for the Miss Magius on Logan's side of the field. We see the Kartana switch in on Tommy's side of the field as well, replacing that Porygon 2. Nature's Madness into that Kartana. It's going to cut its health exactly in half. And we see a Z move from Tommy, and we see the dance. I believe that is the Rockium Z on that Gigalith.
It is. It's going to be a big continental crush going down onto Logan's side of the field. Of course, not going to be doing as much. The burn is going to help Logan maybe sustain through this, and that Kartana switch looks like it's going to be really good. Another example of smart switching and play, meaning that the damage from a Z move just not doing enough, not being the kind of essential big turn that it needs to be. I love Logan's switch out there to get the Miss Magius out, predicting the switch on Tommy's side of the field so that maybe they can come back onto the field at exactly the same time, and then he's able to taunt and shut it down again. So Logan thinking a couple turns ahead. As we were saying at the beginning of the game, they've practiced together. They know pretty much each other's playstyle, and it looks like Logan's got in Tommy's head in this game, managing to predict exactly what he's been doing. So great switch. Obviously that burn just really paying dividends as we move through. So Tommy's big Z move, which he can usually use to swing a game back in his favor, not able to do that. And I feel Tommy's just kind of clamoring to get back in this game with Kartana switching in, getting caught with the Nature's Madness, doesn't have access to its Focus Sash anymore, so it's just going to be a little bit easier for Logan to knock out, I think.
Salamence taking the field in place of that Gigalith. It's intimidating both the Kartana and the Tapu Koko on Logan's side of the field. Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko, though, into the Kartana, and unfortunately it is enough to knock it out. So Tommy is down to 2 Pokemon at this point. Leaf Blade from that Kartana into the Salamence, and while it doesn't deal a lot of damage, the momentum just keeps swinging in Logan's favor.
He's building up a real head of steam here. And Tommy, it's very similar to Game 2. He's trying to switch around, get himself a foothold in this game. But personally, I think the Miss Magius is the answer to Tommy's team. It's put so much pressure on the Porygon, which he really wants to set up that Trick Room. It's just been able to keep him going back and forth. It also got the burn on Gigalith, so maybe Mismagius is what this format has been needing. Of course, Porygon now on the field, not staring down at Mismagius, may be able to pull something out of the pocket to swing it around, but there's going to need to be a lot of work done, especially with the amount of damage Logan has managed to put down on Tommy's side of the field.
Definitely, and we have seen Logan before in this sort of exact situation use the combination of the Nature's Madness and the Sacred Sword on that Kartana to knock out that Porygon. So the fact that Salamence switched out here does not bode well unless Logan predicted, a different kind of switch. We do see the Thunderbolt into the Gigalith, followed by a Smart Strike into the Gigalith. So while unfortunately Gigalith is left with just enough health to possibly get knocked out by the residual burn damage, Porygon 2 was able to get the Trick Room up finally.
That is maybe what Tommy needs to stage a late comeback here as well.
Gigalith just barely holding on.
No, Gigalith clinging on in there with that tiny amount of health it has remaining. What it needs to do is go on and really get out big rock slides. Maybe he's going to have to look for a flinch this turn, get some damage down with the Porygon. We know that Ice Beam will do decent damage to Kartana because it's low special defense. I'm really excited to see if Tommy can stage a huge comeback here. This might be what he needs for it.
This might be what he needs for it. Stone Edge into the Tapu Koko, but unfortunately it does not get a critical hit, and that Tapu Koko holds on with just a little sliver of health. Ice Beam into that Kartana for the knockout, but Tapu Koko decides to go for a Nature's Madness here, so Porygon 2 will be able to stick around on the field for just one more turn, whereas Gigalith unfortunately is knocked out, so it is down to just that Porygon 2 and the Salamence on Tommy's side.
I love that this game has come down to a really exciting conclusion. Tommy getting what he needed in the Trick Room. I think Logan a couple turns ago may have missed a trick when he just decided not to Sky Drop the Porygon. Maybe a combination of a Sky Drop, then bring in the Mismagius and put pressure on it that way was the way to go. Unfortunately, he doesn't go for that play, and he really is able to just keep himself in the game. We do see a different Pokemon come out from Logan in the fourth, though. Something he's kept in the pocket for game 3, perhaps? Something he didn't want to show, and he feels it's going to be really good in this matchup.
Yeah, so we see the Arcanine take the field in place of the fallen Kartana. That Intimidate ability that Arcanine is carrying might not be very helpful here because we have seen a lot of special moves from the Salamence, and we know the Porygon 2 is usually a specially trained Pokemon. But that Arcanine could have access to a move like Snarl, which will lower the damage potential of both these special Pokemon, or that Arcanine might just decide to attack. We'll have to see what Logan chooses. We first see that Tapu Koko switch out for the Mismagius, taking an Ice Beam right on the switch. And we do see that Snarl come out from Arcanine, so it doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it lowers the special attack stat of both the Porygon 2 and the Salamence, who goes for a Dragon Pulse, targeting that Arcanine. We saw that do about half damage in game 1. We see it do about half damage again. However, we do see the Citrus Berry activate, and Arcanine is left with essentially 70% of his health.
Very good move choice by Logan here, and I think bringing Arcanine for Snarl is actually a backup answer to Trick Room. He knew from games 1 and 2 that the kind of things that like to punish him under Trick Room are those special attackers. So although Trick Room has gone up, which wasn't ideal for him, bringing that Snarl really working for him. Salamence unfortunately moving after the Arcanine in this turn means that it is affected by Snarl when it goes to attack, and I think Logan's Snarl may be able to just put a damper on what he's trying to do. Obviously the special attack on both of these Pokemon is important. It's the stat they use to attack, and it's going to be really hard to keep up ahead of steam, but Porygon likes to stick around and be annoying.
Definitely. Porygon 2 with that recover, bringing its health almost back up to full. We see Arcanine with another Snarl targeting both Pokemon, so we see these special attack stats on Tommy's side of the field drop 2 stages total now. Another Dragon Pulse from that Salamence into the Arcanine. Because of that Snarl, it is just not enough to get a knockout, and we finally see the Z move from Logan, and we see it is the Ghostium Z item on that Mismagius.
It's going to be the never-ending nightmare coming out of Mismagius. Feels he's in a really good position, obviously targeting down the Salamence, just wants to get rid of it. It's going to be taking so much damage, and that is the item that we were looking for. Obviously not the Focus Sash it likes to hold, but just showing to Tommy what Mismagius can do, and I think it's done enough to warrant a little bit of time to show off. Of course, Porygon can buy a lot of time here, but Arcanine and Mismagius are staring it down. There is obviously the option for Mismagius to burn it, which will help with a little bit of residual damage each turn. And I think Logan, even though a few things didn't go his way in Game 3, and they definitely didn't go his way in Game 1, he's managed to adapt and answer, get in Tommy's head, and put himself in a really good position to go 3-0, heading into round 4 of this tournament. So Tommy needs Porygon to do a lot of work here.
Yeah, and if Tommy did decide to bring Toxic on his Porygon, this could be a great opportunity for him to start setting it up. We see that Arcanine protect this turn. Toxic into the protecting Arcanine, unfortunately, giving Mismagius the opportunity to taunt, which will then shut down Porygon 2's attempt at both healing and setting up Toxic on Logan's side of the field. So all Logan really has to do at this point is manage to knock out that Porygon 2 prior to that taunt running out, and given the Pokemon he has out on the field right now, and given that residual damage from the Will-O-Wisp that just connected with that Porygon 2, I think we'll most likely see that happen.
No, and we do see the only attack as well on that Porygon 2 is the Ice Beam. With 2 Snarls in, not going to be doing much damage at all to Arcanine. Of course, Tommy just seeing what he can get, maybe some kind of freeze, maybe just do enough residual damage to really stall out this game and keep it going. I think they're just kind of playing for fun, you know. But there is the option this year, something we haven't seen as much in previous years with the new timer. You can take games all the way to time and try and win them out. But unfortunately, with 3 Pokemon on Logan's side of the field, just not enough available to him to come back. I've seen a Porygon to 2v1, but I haven't seen it 3v1.